Alright, good evening and thank you for tuning in to Wheelie Weather. Tonight we're going to go over a couple of different topics: tornado shelters, tornado sheltering guidelines, a couple tornado shelter must-haves, in the event that, you actually happen to face a tornado head-on, and the unfortunate series of events where you end up being struck or closely in the path of an incoming tornado and need to take shelter, and you may be there for a little while due to debris or down power lines, whatever the case may be. Also going to go over and cover a couple of things wind related, so that if you're without power for 5, 6, 7 days, 8 days, you're not over there, hopefully not over there throwing away $300 to $500 to $600 worth of meat and fresh vegetables and drinks and this and that because they all went bad, because you were without power. So we're going to delve into a couple of topics tonight that I was asked to do and cover a wide range of things that just I personally would put in a tornado shelter. The reason that the Southeast doesn't have a lot and the South don't have a lot of tornado shelters, everything like that, we're going to cover a wide range, if I can speak, of topics tonight. I do expect this to be a longer form video, probably 20-25 minutes, something of the nature. So, tornado sheltering guidelines. You want to be in the lowest level, most centered room of your house, surrounded by the most interior walls. The idea is put the most walls between you and the tornado as possible, you and the storm as possible, because 80, 90, 100 mile an hour straight line winds can do the exact same thing to your house that an EF0 to an EF1 tornado can do as well. So don't just assume that, oh, it's just damaging winds, it's straight line winds, whatever, I'm fine. No, 80, 90, 100 miles an hour. The EF0 or the EF scale starts at 65 miles an hour. There's a reason for that. 65 miles an hour is damaging. 65 miles an hour destroys stuff. So you get into that realm of 80, 85 miles an hour, you're talking EF0 or EF1. 95 to 105 miles an hour, EF2. That's 110, whatever. So you're likely facing damage in a high-end straight line wind scenario or low-end, tornadic event issue, and you're going to face some damage and be without power. So you want the most walls between you and the storm as possible. We do want to stay away from walls connected to the garage. The garage is a no-go. If your wall is connected to the garage door gets sucked out, and then the structural integrity of the house right down. So we notice a collapse of the structural integrity of the house collapses. If you're up against that wall or in a room that is adjacent, close to it, you run the risk of being buried by debris, having to be rescued yourself, something of that nature. That's why we highly don't advise the garage being in a portion of your shelter location. Small bathroom, closet, bathtub, kitchen pantry, if you have to, that is on an interior wall, not an exterior wall, away from windows and doors. Bathtub, something of the nature that you want to take shelter and you feel safe taking shelter in the event of a tornado warning and unfortunate subsequent tornado. So that is the idea. Though, for those people I've seen and I've heard people, try and dodge the storms or whatever, and they go and they get a hotel, and it's second, third, fourth floor, high rise, something of that nature. No, you want to be on the lowest level of whatever building you're in. Doesn't matter. The upper floors, second, third, fourth, fifth, whatever size building you're in. Those are going to be the ones that are structurally compromised first. In a tornadic wind event, they are going to be the first ones to collapse, get sheared off, if you will. If you notice in tornadic damage of apartments, let's say, a hotel, something of that nature that is severely damaged in a significant tornado, you typically see floors 2 through whatever just sheared off and gone most of the time, especially in EF2, high-end EF2, EF3 tornadic events. So a couple of things that we want to consider incorporating into wherever we're taking shelter, again, whether it be a closet, whether it be a bathtub, whether it be just the bathroom itself, or whether you have a basement, you're lucky enough to have a basement somewhere, you actually purchased a storm shelter, whatever. So first thing on the list you're going to want to think about is a NOAA weather radio. That's what this is. G-Storm NOAA weather radio. I personally highly recommend the Midland WR120B for most people. It is a fairly priced $35-$40 NOAA weather radio that will keep you up to date, send you alerts, all of the bells and whistles that you want and that you needed to have to warn you against an incoming tornado or incoming severe wind event, to be able for you to effectively and efficiently take shelter. I have this one comes with the belt clip, comes with I don't know how well you can see that, but comes with a charging port in the back of it for USBs, whatever you need it to, cell phones, all this good stuff. But the biggest reason that personally myself that I bought the G-Storm is flashlight. This is something you want to keep in your tornado shelter. You want to keep flashlights, batteries, helmets is a big one. You want some type of helmet. The last tornadic event that we had this past Saturday, where it was projected for EF3 plus tornadoes potential or possible, in the days before, I personally helped a couple of people shop for bike helmets. Ideally baseball helmets, football helmets. Highly ideal is a motorcycle helmet. Motorcycle helmet with the full face shield, everything of that nature. That's going to be able to protect your noggin and your neck region from blunt force trauma, which is how we see about 96-97% of tornadic fatalities. Excuse me. Blunt force trauma to the head and neck region. Flying projectiles, debris falls, knock somebody in the noggin, whatever. You really need to protect that noggin of yours. So helmets are high up. Number 1 on the list is what I'm going to say. Weather radio, probably number 3, right next to closed-toed shoes. Closed-toed shoes are a must. You can't be walking around out there barefoot, flip-flops, Crocs, sandals, whatever, in a debris field. You can't be sitting there walking around in that, where you've got 2x4s with nails, plywood, sheet metal, aluminum, pieces of cars, pieces of people's house, insulation. The ground's going to be soaked anyway. Don't nobody like wet feet. Unless you're at the beach, don't nobody like wet feet. But you want closed-toed shoes. I'm personally going with work boots, but I mean, whatever you can grab. And ideally, you're going to want to have them on and tied before you get into the tornado shelter, because it could be, you got the warning late, or there wasn't much time before the warning, whatever, and next thing you know, you're in the shelter, eyes closed, hands together, and you're praying that everything comes out okay. Within, a minute or two of that warning, that's just how quick it can happen. It's essential. It's, essential in today's day and age. Everybody has grown up these days with technology. Everything is on your phone. Everything you do is on your phone or your laptop, whatever. So, charging bank, Make sure it's fully charged before the events. Have it charged, ready to go. Charging cord for your charging bank. Phone chargers. I'm keeping antacids on me. That's just my opinion. Something I'm gonna have. I'm not trying to have my chest or my stomach burning or, whatever due to acid reflux or something of the nature. Well, I just went through probably the worst time of my life. Just another little tidbit idea. Pet food. Pet food's another one if you can fit it in your tornado shelter. A couple cups, maybe a small bag of that. You still gotta take care of your pets and everything. Something to think about. Emergency prescription refills, an extra dose or an extra bottle or two of your current prescriptions that you're on. You don't know if that next pharmacy got hit. You don't know how long you're going to be without your current prescription. That any emergency supply of your current medications, a list of your current medications I would personally keep in my tornado shelter. I'm keeping my wallet. A lot of people in a hesitant situation, high pressure situation, we get up, we take off, and the wallet is commonly forgotten. Cash in that, because if you're close enough or struck by the tornado, get out, happen to survive, whatever, that town's likely going to be without power. You're going to be wandering around to a town without power that may be semi-operational. Maybe the gas station didn't get hit, maybe the convenience store didn't get hit, but they're on the same power grid as you are. The power lines are down, everything like that. Cash, I know it's not something that a lot of people use these days. I see it every day at work. However many people pull their card out, swipe. I think the ratio is probably 15-1 these days, 15-2 at best, for cash versus card, or card versus cash. But I'm keeping my wallet with all, my driver's license, business cards, debit, credit cards, whatever else you carry in your wallet. I don't personally carry personal information beyond the driver's license. In the instance you're hit, or you're close in proximity and you're going out after after the storm has passed, everything like that, you're doing a little bit of search and rescue by yourself, trying to help neighbors, find neighbors, make sure that everybody's okay, be a good neighbor, whatever. Alcohol prep pads. In the event you've got to, sanitize a bleeding wound, a scrape, a cut, whatever. It's going to burn for a second, but it's probably, you don't want somebody to potentially go without that being cleaned and sanitized, and then a couple days later it gets infected, and the rest is history for them, unfortunately, depending on the severity of the infection and if they receive proper medical care, whatever. This is the medical side of me speaking. Being the way that I have been for 31 years disabled, the medical side of me is constantly going in my head. Training, I would advise being trained, and I would advise getting some training, or learning how to do this. Very simple, very easy. A 3-year-old could figure it out if they tried hard enough. Tourniquets. This is a military grade tourniquet I keep in the case of a high pressure situation, search and rescue situation, whatever, and you are that line of defense where somebody needs that tourniquet and needs you to save their life. They need the bleeding stop. That's what that is exactly for those who don't know. You take the tourniquet, you apply it to the area that needs the blood flow cut off, essentially, because they have a gaping wound, or a missing limb or whatever, partially missing limb, and it's, spewing blood, you've got to stop that bleeding, lickety split, or they're not going to make it to the hospital, unfortunately, like they need to. So again, I would advise, some type of training or watching a couple of, YouTube videos. It's super simple to apply a tourniquet. Like I said, a 3-year-old could do it. I keep paramedical shears on me that in the event, again, SNR needs to be performed or whatever you're gonna need, if you want ace bandage cut, some tape cut, whatever, you want a quality pair of shears with you to perform the necessary actions that you have to perform in an efficient and effective manner. Just, another thing that I'm keeping. Some people may think this is odd, a lot of others don't. It is what it is. Snacks. These are goldfish, as you can see. Just the first thing I grabbed out of the snack box that's sitting to my right. There's a box of snacks on my bed. I grabbed the goldfish. Little hand snacks, crackers, Pringles, mini bags of Chex Mix, mini bags of Doritos, stuff like that. Some crackers and some peanut butter if you can, whatever. Because in the event that, again, you get hit and you're there for a while or whatever, the house is destroyed. Sometimes, unfortunately, we've seen where it takes 45 minutes, an hour, or longer for people to be extricated, or if you're in a really rural area, for rescue to even get there. Unfortunately, you've got a bunch of your neighbors walking around, and you've got maybe a bunch of storm chasers walking around, trying to get to you as fast as they can, but they don't have the tools to, help stabilize the debris field that is surrounding you. And it unfortunately could be a minute before you are extricated. That leads me to another one. Bright colored clothing. I would suggest, I'm looking for it. I would suggest reflective vests, yellows, hot pinks, whatever, light blue, like a teal color. Really, ideally, a couple of reflective vests would be great. Reflective tape, something of that nature. Again, especially in Dixie Alley, where we see a lot of tornadoes, a lot of nocturnal tornadoes. That's another, something I'd keep. We touched on the pet food. We touched on the cash. A whistle. A whistle is going to be top 5. I would keep a whistle in my, ideally around my neck, really, because I'm going in the tornado shelter, and I want it around my neck, not somewhere I have to potentially just sit here and, while I'm laying in a debris field or laying with the house covering me or the house on top of me, whatever. I'm not trying to look around for it. Like, I would ideally want it just like a necklace, professional sports referee. That's what I'm trying to say. Professional sports referee, just hurry up, grab it. Again, that's in the event that you unfortunately are hit and need to be rescued. Let's see. That pretty much has everything I can personally remember. I don't do these with a script, so I'm not sitting here reading off a script. I'm just kind of going off memory here, which is why I'm kind of rambling. But that is ideally some things that I would have in a tornadic shelter or a tornado shelter. Just basic bare necessities to be able to sustain you for a couple of hours until you can get out in the event, again, you're hit by a tornado, which I want to reassure people the chances of that are relatively low. 1 in 12,000 is your actual chance of being directly impacted by a tornado. I know it doesn't seem like it with as many tornadoes as we have a year, upwards of 12 to 15 to 1,800 tornadoes, but realistically, your chances of being impacted directly by a tornado are about 1 in 12,000. you have better odds of perishing in a car crash. Much better odds. So next we're going to touch on tornado shelters and the lack of tornado shelters in the South and the Southeast, and why that is. So if you live in the South, you live in the Southeast, you may have noticed, if unless you're, just you have your blinders on to the situation, the lack of tornado shelters, the lack of houses with basements, the lack of public access shelters for that matter, and there's a reason for it. The main reasons for the lack of sheltering is going to be the water table, where you sit in relation to how high water can get and a potential flooding issue. The ground composition is a big one. A lot of areas in the South are composed of clay, limestone, and bedrock. Clay, limestone, and bedrock is a big issue. When it comes to building basements, building tornado shelters, building, some kind of accessible underground shelter for a family, limestone, bedrock, and the water table are the three main components that keep us from actively building these types of shelters within the houses that we see going up on a day-to-day basis. Yes, I know we live in 2025, but it is an unfortunate reality. And this is something to think about if you're actively looking for a tornado shelter. If you're actively looking for a tornado shelter, somebody to put one in, bedrock, and the limestone, and the clay, the ground composition, that's gonna cost. That's why these things are $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 plus dollars, and then that's just for the shelter. Then you add on the tools to help you with the ground composition, help you with the water table, whatever. That's another upcharge, because they've got to break the bedrock, they've got to break the limestone, whatever, so that your tornado shelter sits level on the ground and doesn't, isn't tilting one way, isn't tilting the other, isn't unstable to where it can potentially be, considered a design flaw and something happens to you. Those are the main components. Now, when we get into talking about public access shelters, okay, where you can go to, a convention center or a community center, or your local fire department, or your local EMA building, whatever, to take shelter. Couple things you have to think of here. There's an occupancy limit that is usually, if you look, right around 200 to 250 people. I live in a town with 175,000 people in it. Think about that for a second. 175,000 people at an occupancy level of 200, 250. How many shelters are we going to have for 175,000 people? And no, not all of us are taking shelter at a public shelter. I'm saying for the ones who would utilize it, you're still probably looking at a couple thousand people, if not more, that may actually decide, hey, I need to get out of my house, I want to go utilize this public access shelter. And at an occupancy rate of 200 to 250, which by the way has to abide by fire code, I really would hope the fire marshal's not out walking around, rolling around in the car, looking for violations during a severe weather outbreak. But you never know. These places have to abide by fire code, and over occupancy, overcrowding is an issue. We live in the South. Again, we are inundated with people who live in mobile homes and trailer parks. It's, for some here, it's a way of life. For others, it's forced financially and monetarily with their financial situation, that they're, that's what they can get right now. That's what they can afford. So they're in a mobile home. In a mobile home situation where severe weather is predicted, you're not going to win with me. You have to leave. I will not, I'll put it bluntly. Everybody who does know me knows that I'm blunt. And I will put it very plainly. that if you're in a tornadic situation, you've got to go. If you live in a mobile home or a trailer, these things are what I refer to as rolling tin cans. You get 110, 120, 125 mile an hour winds, and they're gone. They're destroyed. And usually, unfortunately, so are the occupants. It's survivable, it's doable, and don't twist my words, don't take that as me saying, okay, you can stay. You can't. If it's tornado watch gets issued, we're predicting severe weather, higher end severe weather, whatever, you've got to go. You've got to get out. You've got to get to a sturdier location, whether it's a Walmart, a Home Depot, a gas station, an actual tornado shelter. I personally don't want to take shelter in a big box store due to the construction. Just an opinion. We've seen it with Moore, we've seen it with Joplin, we've seen it, wherever, that these big box stores, they're great for sheltering in, lower amplitude tornadoes, but your upper echelon tornadoes, they're going to be a problem. Once the roof comes off, it's just like the garage scenario. Everything goes. And that is backed up by numerous people that you can just look at yourself. You look up yourself. Again, we can go over Moore 2009 or 2013, Moore 1999, Joplin 2011, and you can see how the Home Depots and how the Walmarts and how the Sam's Clubs and how they all fared, and it's just a design flaw. But shelter is shelter, opposed to a mobile home. Just an opinion. That's me. Let's see. So some of the things that we want to talk about for when it comes to the keeping of specific items for a lengthy power outage. I'm going to include some photos that you'll see at the end of the video for if you're going to be without power potentially for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 days, whatever. You can't afford to. I personally don't know anybody, maybe one or two people that might be able to throw away $300-$400 worth of groceries and not be upset about it. We can't afford that these days with the way that everything is. So one of the things that I personally would like to have in that situation is a little Coleman camp stove. You can find them Walmart.com, Amazon, Home Depot, whatever. You can find them relatively cheaply, 40, 50, 60 bucks. You want a better one, 120, 130. I've seen them up to, 200 bucks. Little camp stove that's no bigger than, yay big, whatever. Runs off propane gas that you're going to want to be able to find, so that in the event that you're without power, you can just, start cooking food. Start, cooking food, warming it up, doing whatever, because if you're without power, it's going to unthaw and go bad anyway. So you got to do what you got to do to keep that food from spoiling, unless, again, you're okay with just chucking it in trash and buying some new food when your power comes back on, which is the unfortunate reality for many these days. They're just gonna, chuck it in the trash, whatever. Another thing that I personally like to have that has been a lifesaver that I've used a couple of times is a Coleman lantern, a battery-powered Coleman lantern. Used to take the battery power or the propane Coleman lanterns, night fishing when we'd go catfishing, whatever. Those are great, but again, they work on propane. You go out, you're in a situation where you're without power, a lot of power lines down, whatever, this, that, and all the other, and you can't get to XYZ place. Propane is not going to be the ideal light source to rely on, so I'm going with a battery-powered, battery-operated lantern. Just two things that are going to be, necessary, in my opinion, for you to be able to sustain yourself for hopefully a couple of days. You may have to, run out and keep getting propane occasionally for the little propane camp stove, but that's, in my opinion, going to be worth it, as opposed to, again, like I've continued to say, throwing away your groceries. Again, same situation as a tornado. Essential charger or power banks, chargers, stuff like that, so that you are able to, contact family, contact people, say, hey, look, we're without power, we're fine, nothing happened, or something unfortunately did happen, and we're just without power for a prolonged period of time. Charging cords, power cords, batteries, battery-powered flashlights, they all go hand in hand with tornadic events and damaging wind events. Just some things that I would keep in mind. I'm going to include a couple other photos of a few items that you guys are going to want. I have a tactical style backpack on the way that I'm going to use as a go bag. The go bag is going to be stocked with necessary first aid kits, little medical supplies, snacks, water, the whole wallet issue if it needs to be, maybe some cash, whatever you decide to put in it. Just a couple of ideas that have been thrown out here. That the go bag should be in the corner of your bedroom, or already in your shelter, so that if that warning comes, you can just grab it and you can go. That's exactly go bag. That's the idea. Stock it with necessary items that you feel that you personally would want in your tornado shelter or on your back, assuming you may be having to evacuate the area within XYZ amount of time, or because you got, again, struck or dealt with straight line wind damage or whatever, and you have to get out of the location. You want something that is quick, easy, accessible. I'm sitting here trying to look. I can't really, think of anything at the moment, and I probably missed a decent deal of things that we'll put in the comments. There is a wonderful resource that I'm going to link in the comments as well, to find your available tornado shelters. It's called Find Your Shelter LLC, findyourtornadoshelter.com. I'm going to link it in the comments of this video. It is run by Dr. Craig Ceci, board-certified meteorologist who has multiple degrees, who works on this website day in, day out to help provide necessary updates on every potential public access sheltering location in all 50 states. He updates it, as often as he can. Sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's 2 weeks. He tries to do it as often as possible. I do have his blessing to use the link. Again, that is for public access shelters in your state, in your region, whatever. And that is where you will see a lot of where the lack of tornado shelters, public tornado shelters, are in the South and the Southeast. He has it as updated as he possibly can over the last couple of years before he released the website and made it an LLC. And there is a noticeable hole between Tennessee, Alabama, Mississippi, on down to the Gulf Coast states, Florida, compared to where people reside in Oklahoma, Kansas, Texas, Nebraska, typical Tornado Alley, as opposed to Dixie Alley. So one of the great resources that I'm going to link in the comments for you guys to be able to, save as a tab or something like that, so that you have the knowledge and have access to quick and easy information to be able to find your potential tornado shelter location if you plan on evacuating the house, or your shelter location. I do appreciate you guys watching this video, taking the time to sift through this information, listen to this information. We are going to talk about shortly, next day or two, the impending new severe weather threat this weekend, Saturday and Sunday. So stay tuned, like this video, subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and hang around for the next update video on the new SPC Storm Prediction Center outlooks for Saturday and Sunday's severe weather potential. Thank you.